My name is Laura, and for most of my life, I thought I had everything figured out. I was a mother, a wife, a working woman who had always juggled responsibilities with determination. But as I learned, life has a way of bringing you moments you never planned for, moments that test your patience, your heart, and your ability to connect with others in the most unexpected ways. It all began on an ordinary Tuesday evening in our quiet suburban home in Oregon. I was in the kitchen preparing dinner, the way I always did around 6 o'clock. The smell of roasted chicken and garlic bread filled the air, and I hummed softly to myself while setting plates on the counter. My husband, Mark, was still at work, running late again, and my teenage son, Ethan, was upstairs finishing his homework. That left me alone in the kitchen until Jason, my husband's son from his first marriage, walked in. Jason was 17, tall and lanky, with dark brown hair that always seemed to fall in his eyes. He had been living with us for almost 2 years after his mother moved across the country for a new job. Adjusting hadn't been easy, for him or for me. Jason wasn't a bad kid, but he carried a quiet heaviness about him, the kind that made you wonder what storms he was fighting inside. That evening, he entered the kitchen quietly, leaning against the doorframe as if unsure whether he wanted to come in or leave. I noticed his shoulders were tense, his eyes downcast, and his hands shoved into his hoodie pockets. I smiled, trying to keep things light. "Hey, Jason. Hungry yet?" asked while placing the salad bowl on the counter. He shrugged, avoiding my eyes. "Not really." I knew something was off. Jason wasn't the kind of teenager who hid his appetite. If there was food, he'd usually eat it, no questions asked. So when he refused dinner, I set the spoon down and gave him my full attention. "Okay," I said gently. "Then what's up?" He hesitated, shifting from one foot to the other. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence until he finally spoke. His voice cracked slightly, carrying both nervousness and vulnerability. "Can I ask you something?" My heart softened. "Of course, Jason. You can ask me anything." He bit his lip, staring at the tiled floor. What does it mean to really be part of a family? The question caught me off guard. For a second, I didn't know how to respond. It wasn't a typical teenager's question, not about school, sports, or video games. It was deeper, aching with something unsaid. I walked over and pulled out a chair at the kitchen table, motioning for him to sit. "Come here," I said softly. "Let's talk." Jason sat down, his legs stretched awkwardly in front of him. His fingers drummed nervously against the table while I poured us both glasses of water. "What makes you ask that?" I said carefully. He sighed. Sometimes I feel like I don't belong anywhere. At Mom's house, I was always in the way because she worked so much. And here, I don't know. I feel like I'm just this extra person who doesn't really fit." His words pierced me. For 2 years, I had tried to make Jason feel welcome, inviting him to family movie nights, asking about his school projects, remembering his favorite snacks. But hearing him confess that he still felt like an outsider made me realize I hadn't done enough. "Jason," I said, reaching for his hand. He didn't pull away, though his fingers twitched nervously. "You're not an extra person. You're family. You matter to us, to me, to your dad, to Ethan. You belong here." His eyes shimmered with something he was trying hard to hold back. "But I'm not like Ethan. He's your real son. You have this connection I'll never have." I swallowed hard, realizing the depth of his insecurity. Love isn't divided like slices of pie, Jason. It's not about who came first or who shares my DNA. Love grows. It expands. And my love for Ethan doesn't take away from the love I have for you. You're both part of my heart. He blinked, as if trying to process my words. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he asked the question that had been haunting him. "Then why does it still feel like I'm on the outside looking in?" I took a deep breath. It was time for honesty. Because it takes time. Families aren't perfect pictures you hang on a wall. They're living, breathing, sometimes messy things. You and I were still figuring each other out. But that doesn't mean we don't belong to one another. It just means we're learning how to walk this road together. For the first time in a long time, Jason looked up at me directly. His eyes, so much like his father's, carried a glimmer of hope. "Do you really mean that?" he asked. "Every word," I said, squeezing his hand. That moment in the kitchen became a turning point. Over the weeks that followed, Jason slowly began opening up more. He joined us at the dinner table instead of retreating to his room. He started sharing little things about his day, even laughing at Ethan's corny jokes. I noticed the change in his posture, less withdrawn, more present. One Friday night, I found him sketching quietly in the living room. He was surprisingly talented, drawing intricate landscapes and portraits. When I complimented him, his face lit up in a way I hadn't seen before. "Do you really think I'm good?" he asked, almost disbelieving. "I think you're incredible," I told him. And from then on, he began sharing his drawings more often, as if finally realizing that his gift was something worth showing. Mark noticed the changes too. One evening, he pulled me aside. "What did you say to Jason?" "He's different lately. Happier." I smiled, remembering that night in the kitchen. I just listened. Sometimes that's all kids need. The bond between us grew deeper with time. Jason started helping me cook on weekends, asking questions about recipes, sometimes playfully arguing about how much salt was too much. Ethan and Jason, though brothers by circumstance, began finding common ground too: video games, basketball in the driveway, late-night talks about school. But the moment that sealed everything happened on Jason's 18th birthday. We had thrown a small party at home, nothing extravagant, just balloons, cake, and a handful of friends. When it came time for gifts, he unwrapped a sketchbook I had bought him, along with a set of professional pencils. He stared at the gift for a long moment before looking up at me. "Thank you," he said quietly. Then, in front of everyone, he added, "You've always made me feel like I matter. Even when I didn't believe it myself. You're the reason I feel like I belong now." Tears stung my eyes as I pulled him into a hug. In that moment, I realized how powerful a single conversation in the kitchen had been. What started as one brave question had transformed our relationship into something real, something lasting. Family isn't defined by blood alone. It's built in the small, tender moments when someone chooses to listen, to understand, to love without conditions. And for Jason and me, that truth became the foundation of a bond we would carry for the rest of our lives. Even today, when I think back to that night in the kitchen, I know it was more than just a conversation. It was a reminder that love, when freely given, has the power to heal even the deepest doubts. And sometimes, all it takes is the courage to ask a single question.